organization.
So let's drill down a little more. As AI diffuses, obviously organizations, companies, governments are going to have to evolve. I'm now getting to the demand side. So how do you think the structure of organizations is changing in an AI world, across roles, across teams, management? I'm sure Microsoft has evolved itself. So it'd probably be good to tell the audience, how do you see this diffusion occur and the utilization at the corporate level or at a government level, which ultimately then creates that demand, which eliminates any fears and bubbles?
Yeah, no, I think it's probably one of the big challenges with all of these new technologies is when work artifact and workflow changes. That means we, as firms, have to change how we work. In fact, I remember meeting the CEO of Generali, a few years back, and he was describing, he had joined the firm, pre-PC era, and he was describing how, for example, they worked with their agents in the field with faxes, interoffice memos, and suddenly the PC showed up and people would then put a spreadsheet in an email and send it around, and the entire workflow and the work process changed, right? So similarly, I think with AI, you are going to start seeing actual change in how workflow happens, right? I mean, even preparing, in fact, for me, coming to Davos, 50 bilateral meetings I have, preparing for those, had a particular workflow, right? Which is, there is to be, my field team would prepare notes, and that would come to my HQ, and that would get further refined. And nothing had really changed, right? Since I joined in '92 to essentially even a few years back. Whereas now, I just go to Copilot and say, hey, I'm meeting Larry, please give me a brief. And it comes back and gives me, by the way, the one nice thing is it gives me a 360, right? It knows what we are doing with you as a client, what we're doing as a client of yours, right, and everything in between as an investment. So it captures even information unlike anything else. In fact, what I do is I take that and immediately share that back with all my colleagues across all the functions, right? Think about it. It's a complete inversion of how information is flowing in the organization. It's not like this classic, we have an organization, we have departments, we have these specializations, and the information trickles up. No. It actually, it flattens the entire information flow. So once you start having that, you have to redesign structurally. So the current structure may not make sense. Because you want people to be able to work in a way that allows them to have this information flow freely. So what all this leads me to, if I had to sort of say, what's the formula? The formula, I think it starts with the mindset. So the mindset we as leaders should have is we need to think about changing the workflow with the technology. Then that needs skill set. So you can't sort of talk about this in the abstract. You got to use it. Like, so if I'm not using the tool,
you have to trust it.
You have to trust it. You have to use it. You have to learn even how to put the guardrails to trust it, right? So you can't just be afraid of it. It's going to be diffused. So the question is, as a firm, you have to use it to learn how to even put the guardrails that allow you to be able to trust it. So skills. So mindset, skills. The other big consideration really is how do you make sure you have the data set that you're feeding, like context. Like, it's kind of like you have a new intelligence layer, but the intelligence layer is only as good as the context you give it. So people describe it even as context engineering, but that is what firms do. Right? If you think about what do firms do, it's all about the tacit knowledge we have by working as people in various departments and moving paper and information. So the question is, how do you really have this AI also have that context? So these are sort of some of the new things that have to percolate throughout an organization to take advantage. In fact, that's why I think you're going to see that challenge of why am I not seeing immediate results in productivity? Because you have to do the hard work. In fact, that's why it's not going to be there are going to be firm-wide differences. There could be sector-wide differences, but it's going to fundamentally be because of the leadership will in an organization.
Do you see the applications being used across large companies and medium and small companies, or is it still the domain of mostly the large companies at this moment?
I think that what you're seeing is it's easier because if you have a green sort of, if you start fresh, it's easier to adopt these tools, and you construct your organization knowing that these tools exist.
So is it a barbell then?
It is a barbell.
So small companies that are just starting use that platform.
100%. And I think, in fact, I would say even for large organizations, there is a fundamental challenge, right? Because unless and until your rate of change keeps up with what is possible, you're going to get schooled by someone small being able to achieve scale because of these tools. So, but I think large organizations have an inherent strength. You have the relationships, you have the data, you have know-how. But the bottom line is, if you don't translate that with a new production function, then you really will be stuck. And so, therefore, the change management challenge for large organizations is going to be bigger. The structural challenge for small organizations of how to overcome scale issues is going to be harder. So it's sort of the two sides. In an interesting way, it's going to be a very competitively intense world where neither side, like whether you're a new entrant or an incumbent, can't take it as like I can just coast.
What about country to country?